You may have probably seen this done on TikTok or Instagram Reel. Let me explain what I mean. When you see a blouse or something that looks like a fully made corset blouse or whatever style it is, and then you have your skirt being draped on the blouse. That's exactly what I'm talking about. In this video, I want to show you how to drape your skirt, more like attaching your skirt to a blouse to form a dress or a gown. I see this commonly being used for bust corsets and corsets with asymmetrical waistline, because this allows you to be completely creative with the shape of the joint between the skirt and the bodice. So I have my blouse right here. There's a tutorial for this on the channel. In case you haven't seen it, I will link it up above and in the description box. So I already have my Victorian corset here, which we'll be using for this class. Another piece you need is your skirt, already made skirt. So I have one here which I'll be using for the purpose of this demonstration. So here it is. This is the back and this is the front. This is strictly for the purpose of demonstration, and you can see along the waistline here, I haven't closed up any part of my waistline. I lined it already and I made use of inseam finishing, so my seams are inside. So the seam of the main fabric, which is the brown one, is inside, while the seam of the lining as well is. Whatever method you have actually used to create the skirt is okay, you'll be fine, but just leave the waistline open like this because you don't need to stitch it close. So now I'm going to put this on the dress form, making sure that the waistline of the skirt just sits into the waistline of the blouse. If you are working for a client, I will advise that you invite your client for a fitting, not the final fitting, but your client needs to come around for a fitting so that they can put this on and you create the shape you want right on them. After wearing the skirts on your client or your dress form, you're going to pick a piece of chalk and draw the waistline you want. Now this is the sweet part, and you have loads of options to work with. I can decide, okay, I want here to be curvy. Okay, I want a waistline that looks slightly curvy. If you want a symmetrical waistline, ensure that the left side and the right side looks the same as much as you can. So you can take your measurement with tape just to know exactly where. So let's play around with a curvy one from the side of my skirt here. So you want to make sure that it aligns very well with each other. Then you go ahead and draw the other side. Now you know that if you are doing something like this, it has to now continue on the back. Okay, you have to do something, continue your line at the back as well. So let's say I'm following this, then I'm going to continue this way and end it here. Okay, so that's one. I may actually do this eventually. That's just one of the designs you can make. So if you want a basque waistline, for example, you decide on how deep you want your basque to go. So let's go with 5 inches. I'm still marking, this is the center. This is the center. I'm following this center line up until here. And from here, I can then, although it will be hard to work with a ruler, but I prefer to work with my hand anyway. From here, or from whatever new place I want my waist to start, I'm going to draw what I want on this side and draw another one on this side. So whatever you draw, you're just going to cut it out, adding ½ an inch seam allowance. That's the second example. Let's say you want something asymmetrical, or maybe you still want a basque, but then you want the deepest part of your basque to be at the side. You just pick up your chalk, mark the depth you want, pick up your chalk and draw out what you want. I actually made something like this. Okay, and then you cut it accordingly. So it just leaves so much room for creativity, and that's what makes this draping style fun to work with. Whichever one you have decided to work with, let's work with this curvy one. That's the first one I created. I'm just thinking, should I not? On this side I'm marking 4.5. That's 5 inches from the top, because I know that I have ½ an inch seam allowance. So that's 4.5 to the side. I want to take it up to the center. Sorry with my chalk, I know my chalk is not that visible. I know my chalk is not that visible, it's just hard for me to make it more visible. So what I'm saying is I measured my 5 inches here. Of course, I want to make sure that I still have the inner corset intact. Half an inch at the center, and I'm connecting it this way. So I'll come to this other side and do the same thing. 5 inches. Then this is connecting from this point that way. Now, because of this particular style I'm going for, I have to continue on my skirt. So at the center back, I'll come downward by half an inch, mark another curve that will end here, and I'll come this way and continue to the center back. So having done my markings, I'm going to just cut my zip, still leaving some extra there because you need to fold it in, right? So just above my zip, I'll start cutting along the curve, leaving half an inch seam allowance. I'm leaving half an inch. I lost my audio here, so let's switch over to a voiceover. So I kept cutting. I did for the left side and switched over to the right side. I made sure they were equal, and my corset was made for Jumai. If you watch my vlogs, you will know who Jumai is. Meanwhile, the skirt had to fit into this dress form because that was what I was using for this tutorial. So the sizes are not exactly the same, so I experienced small issue with gaping and, you know, fitting the skirt into these bodies. And when I was sewing, it was a little big for the bodies. There are two ways you can sew this skirt onto the blouse. You can overlock the edge of the skirt, then fold in the seam allowance, use a steam iron or a steam sprayer to, you know, press in your seam, then hand tack. This can work especially if you are planning to attach applique or just to beautify or to bead around the seam line. With that, you don't need to sew it with a sewing machine again. Another way is to mark the waistline on the blouse with a chalk. Mark that of the front, do the same thing for the back. Make sure that the side seams align with each other. It will just make your work look neater and, you know, more with a better fit. So at this point that I even discovered that, oh no, this skirt is having some issues, you know, and I had to eventually adjust my pins so that the skirt sit properly into the blouse, and that left us with more volume at the back. Okay, back to what I was saying. Mark around the waistline on the blouse, then you can then pull off the skirt. This is the method I'll be working with, so just watch me do this. Once I was done marking the waistline on the blouse, I notched the center front of the skirt just so I know exactly where to put this. So I made sure that I included the lining inside, okay, while doing this. And now at the center back, note that you cannot sew the what am I saying? You can also all the back down. Okay, you can't do that. So there are some part of it which you're going to sew in, while some part will be attached to the blouse. Some will be left free so that your zip can open properly. So notch that position. That's what I'm doing here. I just held my skirt together. I was trying to mark the position of my notch, and I did that, I think, close to this boning line thereabout. Eventually shifted to the center back when I was sewing because of the disparity in the sizes of what I was using. I mentioned earlier on that this is strictly for the purpose of teaching, for the purpose of demonstration for you guys. Okay, so I went ahead to sew in the notch part, just like closing up the waistline of the skirt. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but I closed up from the zip allowance up to that point and left every other part of the skirt open. I did the same thing on the other side. Okay, so having done that, I went ahead to overlock. That's not showing yet here, but I overlocked the edge, the waistline of the skirt, then pinned down my skirt on the blouse so that I can either hand stitch or I stitch using my sewing machine. I went for the latter here. So now pinning just allows you to see the whole shape, and note that this is a concave curve on a convex curve when you turn it around. I don't know if you understand what I mean. So when you are sewing, you have to just take it easy, make sure you follow the curve on the blouse, not the one on the skirt. Keep putting down your needle and manipulating the curve on the skirt to fit into that of the blouse as you sew. Here I was done with sewing, and this is what I have on the right side, and I'll just turn this around so you see it from the inside. This is what I have on the inside. So just so you guys can see it properly, I use a white thread on one side of it. I'm just showing you the curve I worked with right there. So at this stage, I went ahead to press, very important to press my skirt properly so it sits in. So this is what I have right here, and I'll be closing up my closure for the blouse. And yeah, we have our corset on the inside. Now for mine, because of what I mentioned earlier on, the disparity in size and all that, you can see that the part where I nudged to sew in came closer. Okay, it came closer. So you shouldn't have that issue if you work with like the same measurement or a uniform pattern for the same person.